is now in agreement with the ranking member that we're going to go for a second round. And so the chair will recognize himself for the beginning of that second round of questions. Administrator Criswell, I think you highlighted the CREW Act in your testimony now and verbally numerous times regarding how it helped in staffing shortages. Yet in your letter and your responses to letters from Chairman Graves, FEMA resources and personnel have been diverted to help deal with the border crisis. And I'd ask the unanimous consent to have these emails admitted to the record and without objection so ordered. On March 17th, an email of yours provided to the committee in response to these oversight letters shows that you emailed Secretary Mayorkas that both you and FEMA's Region 3 administrator had discussed the current state of coordination based on her observations. Everything you said is kind of unclear because it's heavily redacted, as you can see here, but what I can see is that you expressed concerns committing her to no longer than 30 days, and then on the following day, on March 18th, you received an email from the Secretary thanking you for supporting FEMA Region 3 administrators' dedication to the border coordination with IMAT support for a 30-day period. Now, the IMAT teams are specialties, as I understand it, that deal with disasters. Does that mean you and the Secretary agree there's a disaster on the border? I mean, you sent one of these. Go ahead, ma'am.
Our incident management assistance teams are unique teams that are trained to deal with complex problems. And the skill set that they bring, specifically the team that our Region 3 administrator leads, is a team made up of collateral leaders across our agency designed to support a variety of different incidents to help bring that level of collaboration, coordination, and communication, the skill set that our emergency managers bring to all of the problems that we solve.
Okay, so it's not about disasters.
So this was specifically about creating an organizational structure to help support our partners across the department, establish a sound, unified coordination.
So I guess by transposition, then, if it's not a disaster and it's to create this team, then we're saying that apparently Secretary Mayorkas and Department of Homeland Security doesn't have what it needs, is not equipped to handle what's happening on the southern border because they're calling on you. You're resource challenged by your admission. You even were concerned per your email. Then in November, you emailed the Secretary, indicated that he had requested support again from your Region 3 administrator on the border. And I would remind you that Region 3 covers Pennsylvania and the district I am proud to represent. And I'm concerned about those folks in the district that are paying the taxes for FEMA to support them, and to remind everybody that Region 3, the district we're talking about, or the region we're talking about, had 11 major disaster declarations, not including COVID, during that period. I'm concerned, as you are, how many personnel, how many people did FEMA send to the border, and what was the duration, since I can't find out from these emails?
The specific instance that you are talking about with our Region 3 regional administrator, again, is part of an IMAT team that's made up of collateral personnel from across our agency, many from headquarters. Our Region 3.
Okay, that's great. How many for how long?
They have a handful of people. I don't know exactly how many from that team, but that team is only 12 people. And they
So it wouldn't be more than 12?
It would not be more than 12.
Okay, and you don't know how long or how many instances at this point?
That team was sent to here in DC to work with our partners across the department to help them establish what is now the Southwest Border Coordination Center, and they helped them.
Okay, but while they were here in DC or out the Southwest border, they weren't focused on Region 3, which is Pennsylvania, which is what they were hired to do. It's what they're supposed, that's their daily responsibility, right? And while we're having disasters in that region, they're focused on Washington, DC, and the border particularly. I mean, that's what I see here. I mean,
Again, the only person on that team from Region 3 is the one person who is the lead. This is a team that's
But that's also the person in Region 3 that's the lead for Region 3.
But this team is made up of collateral personnel to come help support a variety of incidents.
I get it, but my point is that this person is not focused on the regions that's having disasters because they're focused on the border. And while we might disagree or agree why the border disaster is happening, I would contend that it's happening because of the policies of this administration. So the people in Pennsylvania that are paying for their region administrator don't get their region administrator because the administration determines that that person is going to be on the southwest border or in Washington, D.C., dealing with a southwest border problem caused by this administration. Let me ask you this final question. Who's paying for that? Who's paying for that?
For the Region 3?
For the IMAT team, for the Region 3 coordinator, for the person that's supposed to be in Pennsylvania, that's in Washington, D.C., dealing with the southwest border, who's paying for that?
These are part of our appropriated
FEMA
funds.
is paying for that. So FEMA's paying for the border, right? So when you pay your taxes and we say, oh, well, that's all going to the Department of Homeland Security, this portion to secure the border, that's not true. Department of Homeland Security is now requiring FEMA to take some of their disaster relief people and send them somewhere to deal with the border. That's how we're also dealing with it. So it's costing doubly. Not only is Homeland Security, and by the way, I don't know if people realize this, but you're not supposed to be duplicating services that are provided by another agency, whether it's Interior, whether it's Forestry. You're doing that with planting trees as well, by the way. That's another story. But on this occasion, you are duplicating services that are supposed to be handled by the Department of Homeland Security with FEMA dollars, and yet FEMA is demanding and asking, and maybe rightly so in many cases, for a supplemental for disaster assistance funding. At the same time, they're spending America's tax-paying dollars that are supposed to go to disaster relief on the southwest border in a disaster created by policy by this administration. With that, I yield, and I recognize the gentlelady from Nevada.